Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to the new video on the channel. And today guys, I'm going to be going over which teams I feel like will rise and which teams I feel like will slide for the 2023 AFL season. So let's go ahead, hop right into things. Alright, so obviously before we start, we do have to go back through the 2022 AFL ladder after round 23, so then we know whether they're going to rise or whether they're going to slide from their last ladder position. So the Cats finished in first, the Demons in second, the Swans in third, the Pies in fourth, the Dockers in fifth, the Lions in sixth, the Tigers in seventh, and the Western Bulldogs in 8th, Carlton in 9th, St Kilda in 10th, Port Adelaide in 11th, the Suns in 12th, Hawthorn in 13th, the Adelaide Crows in 14th, the Bombers in 15th, the Giants in 16th, and then West Coast in 17th and North Melbourne in 18th. So let's go ahead now and hop right into the video. Alright, so the way that rises and sliders works is pretty simple. It's either whether I feel like a team will rise, slide, or stay in the exact same ladder position. So I've got every size ladder position here. So let's go ahead, hop right into things. So the first team that we've got is the Adelaide Crows. And I feel like they finished 14th last year. I feel like this year they are just surely going to have to rise. They played pretty well last year. They took teams down to the end. I feel like that was one of their major strengths of their game style last year, was that they took every team to the end. And 14th finishing ladder position for a team like that probably isn't high enough. I feel like this year 14th will definitely not get them away. I feel like they've really got to be top 12 or higher to have a good year. Otherwise, some pressure could really be forming on the Crows. So I feel like this year is an absolute must rise for the Adelaide Crows, and I feel like they will. So Brisbane is another side that does have to rise. Last year you could say was underwhelming, finishing in 6th position, and they definitely had expectations to go higher. With their additions, Dunkley, Fletcher, Ashcroft, Gunston, you feel like they've absolutely got to go higher. And this year, they should be definitely attacking first spot, second spot at home, qualifying final. They should definitely be in the top 4 at a bare minimum. So I feel like, yep, they definitely should be rising from 6th position. So Carlton were in 9th last year, and I feel like it is definitely harsh to put them in stay the same. I feel like there's all the chance they miss the finals again this year. They could go lower than 9th, they could go higher than 9th, they could be 9th again. I feel like this year they're going to have to make the top 8, so I am tipping them to make the top 8. I reckon it'll just be like by a coat of paint though, or something like that. They'll probably finish 7th or 8th. I don't feel like they will go up into the top 4, but I feel like this year though, however, they will rise. So next up, we've got Collingwood, and I feel like this year's going to be a bit of a slide for them. Now, we know they went from 17th in 2021 to 4th in 2022. I feel like this year they're going to have a small slide. They could easily slide out the top 8 altogether and be one of those mid teams. But I feel like with some of their additions, that really can't happen. I feel like they'll fall down to perhaps maybe 6th or 7th. But I'd say that's probably the furthest down would be about 8th that they'd be able to go because of some of the talent that they've got on that list. But yeah, last year the amount of games they won by a very small margin didn't really solidify their case as to why they won the best sides. Because if you were to turn that around and flip side all those games against them, they would have still been quite comfortably on the lower end of the ladder. So the Bombers finished 15th last year, and I feel like they're going to have a little mini rise this year up the ladder. I feel like Brad Scott will change their game plan, and they added a couple of dimensions to the trade period which they didn't have. Example, Will Setterfield to add some height to their midfield, and a different minded forward is in Sam Wiedemann. So I feel like they've got some pretty good young talent as well. The Bombers, I feel like they're going to have a little shift up the ladder, maybe a couple of positions, but I feel like that'd be the absolute best. I could also see them really having a horrible year and sliding down right and well and truly into that bottom area of the ladder, even further down than 15th. So the Dockers finished fifth last year, and I feel like they're an interesting one heading into this year. I feel like they could arguably stay the same, but I am going to go ahead and put them in a little bit of a slider. From 5th, I reckon they could finish about 6th or 7th, but actually, you know what? I'm going to put them in stay the same, actually. You got to have a team in there. I feel like they will probably finish 5th. I feel like they could rise into the top 4. They could slide down. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to change it to slide in, actually. They could rise, they could slide, they could stay the same. I feel like the Dockers are going to be a really interesting side this year. I feel like they'll probably have a little bit of a slide, maybe to 6th or 7th as well. But yeah, I don't think they'll finish in 5th again. They might rise up into the top 4 as well. I'm not quite sure with them this year, but I reckon they're going to have a little mini slide. And same with the Cats as well. I don't feel like they'll finish 1st again this year. Obviously, we know they finished first last year. I feel like they'll finish second this year behind Brisbane, just because I feel like the class that Brisbane has should put them on top of the table. And I feel like the Cats will finish second because I reckon, in my opinion, they do have one of the best lists in the competition, along with Brisbane to the Cats. And yeah, I feel like they will finish second behind the Lions. Now it's the Gold Coast Suns, and they finished 12th last year. And I reckon they could finish 12th again. I do feel like the Suns could easily finish 12th again. I feel like they could rise, they could slide, they could stay the same. I'm going to put them in rise, though. I feel like this year's the year where this has to start working for the Suns, where they've got to start winning some games. And you feel like from at points where they were at last year, 12th again, just you almost look back at the year and you go, 12th, are you satisfied with that? Probably not. If you're a Gold Coast Suns fan, let me know in the comment section down below if you were satisfied with 12th last year. But I know that if I was to think about the Suns last year, I probably wouldn't be as satisfied with 12th. They had a pretty poor back end of the year, and I feel like, they did really let go of a finals position. This year, top 10, really non-negotiable this year for the Gold Coast Suns. They have to be up there in the mix, and they were contending for finals last year, but you just put it in ladder position in 12th, you just, again, feel interesting. The Giants, well, they finished 16th last year, and I reckon they're going to have a slide down to 17th or potentially even 18th at the bottom. I just feel like with all the talent they've lost, they don't really have any. I mean, they've still got a couple of big names in their group, but I feel like compared to some of the other big names, they don't have a lot of them, and their big names may not compare. And same with Hawthorn, they got rid of lots of talent last year, and I feel like they are definitely going to be heading for a pretty big slide this year. Somehow they managed to finish 13th last year, and yet this year they're going to be well and truly in the bottom four, kind of entering rebuild stage. Their fresh talent does look good, their young talent does look good, but again, it's going to take them a couple of years to fully develop. Now into Melbourne, and they finished second last year, and I feel like they're going to have a mini slide this year as well, to third, or maybe fourth, or they might miss the finals altogether. But just with the side that Melbourne are, with the quality, with their ruckman, Grundy and Gawn, I really could not, with their stacked midfield defence line, I could not see them missing finals. Again, score on the board with their forward line will be interesting, but I still feel like their forward line is fine. And I feel like they won't be sliding very far, or if not at all. But second, I feel like they'll probably finish third. So North Melbourne finished 18th last year, as we know, perched on the bottom of the ladder. This year is really non-negotiable for North Melbourne. It's really clear what has to be done this year. Just get off the bottom of the ladder. If that means 17th, it means 17th. They just cannot finish bottom this year. Alistair Clarkson is their coach. He's a big name. They do have some pretty decent players. Wardlaw, Sheasel for the draft. And they also got a couple of decent players. Logan Tucker throughout the trade period. I just feel like that this year for North has to be some sign of improvement and somewhere that's not 18th on the ladder. Even if it's 17th, it's an improvement for North. So Port Adelaide finished 11th last year, and I feel like this year, look, they could really stay the same and finish 11th again, but I feel like they're going to be like 9th perhaps this year, finish like 9th or 10th. I don't think they'll finish 11th. We know that 0-5 start last year did hurt them. And if they had just won 2 of those first 5 games, they actually would have made finals as well, which is quite crazy to think. But that 0-5 start did hurt their chances, and it's very unlikely they start 0-5 again this year. I have them rising, just missing finals, but I feel like they could also easily make finals as well. So Richmond finished 7th last year. 7th, if you can believe that. I feel like this year they'll rise, and I reckon this year they could really find themselves inside the top 4 with the amount of additions that they had through Taranto and Hopper. Their midfield is looking stacked, and they've got versatile players all over the field as well, which really does make things great for Richmond, and a promising year is ahead where they could attack a flag. St Kilda now, they finished 10th last year. I feel like they're going to have to slide this year. It's pretty interesting for the Saints because they could finish anywhere, really. They could definitely make the top 8 under brand new coach Ross Lyon. But I feel like they will slide down the ladder down to that 13th, maybe 12th, 13th, 14th area. Some of their players are interesting because they're like, you don't really know what to expect from them. And their players can have their players, in my opinion, can be quite inconsistent at times as well. And they can have some pretty poor outings, but some pretty good ones as well. So now on to Sydney, who finished 3rd last year, and I feel like they're going to have a bit of a slide. Now, I'm not saying like we are talking 2017 Adelaide, 2019 Giants, or even 2022 Western Bulldogs after being beaten pretty convincingly in the grand final the year before by a big margin. We know those sides have had some really big fall-offs. I don't think Sydney are going to have a massive one. They finished 3rd. I feel like they could still make the top 4. I still feel like they could do that, but I do see them being maybe 5th or 6th. But yeah, they're going to be an interesting one. I feel like their list is really good, really young as well, so that does give them a pretty good advantage. A great list they do have. Now, West Coast, they finished 17th last year. I reckon 17th and 18th will be the Giants and the Hawks. Not quite sure what order they'll be in, but I still do feel like that's 17th and 18th, which obviously does mean 17th. Well, I feel like the Eagles are going to have to be easily higher than 17th. Might only be 16th, might be 15th. They might even get up to 14th due to the games that have at Optus Stadium, which some teams they play there, for example, North Melbourne, they play the Bombers there, and they play the Giants there. That's probably 3 wins right there, which should avoid them from 17th and 18th right away. And then you'd have to think they're going to have to win a couple of times away from home as well. So you do feel like with all that gathered, they're at least going to get 4 or 5 wins, which actually isn't too bad if you think about it that way, considering they do beat North, Essendon and the Giants at home, which they probably will do, as shown in the past couple of years. So I feel like for West Coast, they are going to rise up this year. I'm not sure how much it'll be, whether it'll be 16th or 15th or 14th or whatever. But yeah, I feel like if 17th and 18th are going to be occupied by the Giants and the Hawks, I feel like the Eagles obviously got to go higher. That's just the way things work. And the Doggies finished 8th last year. And yeah, I don't think they're going to finish 8th again. I feel like they've lost more talent, which obviously on their end is disappointing. Haven't really gained a lot. So yeah, I feel like the Doggies will fall and slide down from 8th. They could go higher than 8th, but they could stay in 8th. But I do see them finishing maybe 11th, 10th, 11th, 12th or 13th. Alright, so there we go. There are my risers and sliders for the 2023 AFL season. I feel like the teams I got rising: the Crows from 14th, the Lions from 6th, the Blues from 9th, the Bombers from 15th, the Suns from 12th, North Melbourne from 18th, Port Adelaide from 11th, Richmond from 7th, and West Coast from 17th, sorry. So I have got 9 teams rising, and then the 9 teams sliding are Geelong from 1st, Melbourne from 2nd, the Pies from 4th, the Dockers from 5th, the Swans from 3rd, the Doggies from 8th, the Giants from 16th, the Saints from 10th, and the Hawks from 13th. So there we have it. Feel free to let me know which teams you think will rise and which teams you think will slide in the 2023 AFL season. Maybe you feel like any sides will stay the same. I feel like it's an ever-changing ladder, and I feel like it is very tough for sides to stay in the same position from the year prior. So some sides I feel like are going to have a mini slide, some teams are going to have a mini rise. So make sure that if you haven't seen your team, go back and watch it, as I will explain whether I feel like it'll be a big or small rise or fall. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Send you guys never miss another video on the channel. Thank you guys all so much. Bye everyone. Flaming Footy out.